Today we're reacting to the Chinese secret about how they save so much more money than us living in the States.
The most stunning fact about the Chinese is that in China, the gross savings rate there is 45.9% as of December 2021. That means on every $100 that they bring in, they're going to be saving roughly $46 of that. Contrast that to the United States, where we have a heavy focus on consumption in this country. Our savings rate is typically between 3.5 and 5% according to the data. So
this is so crazy to me. It's not like they're just saving a little bit more money than us. They are saving an astronomical amount more than us. This makes me super curious to visit China and see what the culture is like and what things are leading to this culture that's focused on savings and not spending. Because in America, credit card debt is out of control. As a nation in 2024, we have $1.2 trillion worth of credit card debt. That means that the average credit card balance is about $6,300. How many of the money issues that we have here in America would just evaporate if we were all saving 45% of our income?
what's the reason for this big disparity? I mean, that's almost a factor of 10 that we're talking about here. So why are the Chinese so good at saving money? First, it's definitely cultural. Us as Americans, we're always being hit with sales, discounts, financing options, and we're always kind of pressured to keep up with our neighbors. A lot of this originated after the post-World War II era. It was not long after the Great Depression, and it was deemed patriotic if you were actually to consume in America at that time. And so they were trying to spur the economy on.
And I encourage you all to go shopping more.
So I totally also feel this pull towards it's patriotic to spend money because you're spurring on the economy. It's kind of part of your job to be a good consumer if you have money, because then you are affording other people to have jobs.
In China, it's very different. They have a heavy emphasis on saving money because of what money means to them, as well as the demographics of their country. You'll also find a heavy aversion to financing things in China. Oftentimes, Chinese people want to buy things full in cash instead of trying to finance it and take on debt. If you understand intrinsically why Chinese people want to save money, it can help you save money as well. So the first reason why Chinese people like to save money is the meaning of money and what it means to them. So as kids, you're taught from a very early age that saving money is honorable. Kids will often get money in these red envelopes for New Year's and birthdays, and they are often encouraged by their parents to save it. This money is referred to as lucky money.
So this even starts culturally when the Chinese are young. When they receive money, they're expected to save some of it. So this is totally not a cultural thing in America. Whenever a kid gets money for their birthday, what is the first thing they're thinking about? How am I going to spend it? How am I going to buy that Minion Lego set? At least that's what my kids are into at the moment. But we're thinking about how are we going to consume the money, not how are we going to save it. I think this is a super important cultural point though, because this is about how do we talk about money even when our kids are young and when they get money when they are a child. So let me know in the comments, what was the money culture in your household like when you were growing up? When you received money, what was the expectation about what you would do with it?
Money. People with a lot of money in Chinese culture are deemed successful in many people's eyes, and so it's often viewed as a good thing to have a lot of money. Now, being successful also has its other perks in China, and that actually brings me to my next point, which is demographics. Up until 2016, China actually had a one-child policy that was implemented in the late 70s and early 80s to kind of stem overpopulation, and that means each family could have one child. Now, if you had more than one child, you would just be slapped with a fine, and in addition, if you didn't pay that fine, your household would not be able to register your second child's name in the household system, so your second child would not be eligible for healthcare services and other services like education. So naturally, this one-child policy created a sharp decline in newborns, as you can see by this graph. The other thing with the one-child policy was that since families were only having one child, they weren't having multiple kids in the majority of cases. That means that the parents could save more money because they didn't have multiple kids to feed.
So the idea here is that having more children means that you have to consume more because you have to provide for all of those children. So it's less expensive if you're only supporting and educating and clothing one child as opposed to 3 or 4 children. So the fact that there weren't as many children means that there was only one. But I do see one-child families, even in America, and they tend to spend more money on that one child. They're not just learning one instrument, they're learning 2. They're not just going on camping trips in their state, they're going to Italy and going to the Taylor Swift concert. So I don't know if it's actually a money-saving move in general, because I'm not sure people spend the same way when they have one child as when they have 3 or 4. I also think that people with more children have different expectations about what they're going to provide for those children. So if you have 4 children, unless you have a lot of money, you're probably not thinking that you're going to help them get their bachelor's degree and their master's degree and foot the entire bill. But if you have one child, You might be thinking that.
But let's actually talk about the money secret of this video. The main secret as to why Chinese people are brilliant at saving money, it's not anything crazy, it's just that they have every dollar accounted for. In my particular case, my dad would always know where his money was going at all times, and there is a special budgeting system that can help you with this, and in America and in the Western countries, it's called the zero-based budgeting system. The zero-based budgeting system is a method in which you budget where you spend every last cent of your monthly income so that your amount left at the end of every month is equal to zero. So that means your income minus your expenses equals zero at the end of the month. Now, expenses in this case also includes savings, investments, paying off debt, etc. Let's pretend you make $4,000.
I don't know if he's going to get into this later, but what I really want to hear about is why is there a culture of zero-based budgeting in China and not in America? Because I would love for this to be a thing in America. Here I am trying to make this a thing in America. But why are more Chinese people keeping track of every single dollar that they have? And I do believe that this is the main thing that makes a difference for people's money, is they know what their money is doing. It's not about doing it perfectly. It's not about never spending any money. It's about knowing where your money is going and having a plan for that. If we don't have a plan and we are just spending randomly, because so much money gets lost just because we don't know what's happening. You would be amazed at how much money you would find, and you would be able to redirect to what was important to you if you simply kept track of every single purchase that you made.
A month, a zero-based budget might look like the following. You have your rent, your groceries, your necessities all listed right here, but then you also have a section for the things that you're saving for. Your emergency fund, your IRA, your student loan payments, new car fund, and then any other savings that you might want to do. You can see by the time that you get to the end of your budgeting, you are left with $0 at the bottom right here. All right, there are four main factors that the Chinese prioritize to help them save a lot of money that I want to tell you about. The first of the four main factors that the Chinese do to help them save money is that they don't indulge in luxury goods or goods that are just there as status symbols. The majority of Chinese people want to stay humble, and they also want to fly under the radar, so they usually stay away from these luxury products.
This is such a contrast to in the United States, where people want to not fly under the radar, buy the red car, have the Louis Vuitton bag, so that they do stand out from the crowd. This idea that it is good to be different than everyone else is costing us a lot of money. But this idea that I want to blend in, I want to kind of just look like everyone else so that no one really knows my financial status, and it kind of keeps you more private in a way, because nobody knows your business or nobody knows how much your car costs.
Number two, when the Chinese earn money, they usually like to live off a very small percentage of their income. Now, my dad grew up with very little money as a child in Shanghai. There were some days that he could not even afford food, and he would go to sleep hungry. When he was able to afford food, all he could really buy at the time was a plain pastry called a mantou, and a mantou is a tasteless kind of white bun that you can buy for very cheap. Because of this tough childhood, when my dad started his career, whenever he earned, let's say, $10, he tried to live off of one single dollar. Now, in reality, was he able to live off of $1 for every $10 that he earned? Not really. There were going to be times that he had to spend 6, 7, 8, or 9 out of those $10 just to make ends meet. For him, though, saving money wasn't a way to build wealth. It was actually a way to ensure that he never had to sleep hungry again.
In a way, his father's upbringing almost reminds me of those that grew up during the Great Depression, and they became super savers because they never wanted to be hungry again. And I think growing up with that little changes how you view life and what is important and what is possible. Because if you grew up in abundance, you're like, of course, I need all of these things. I need this fancy food. I need this restaurant. I need this nice TV. But if you grew up with absolutely nothing, you know that that's not true, and you know how little you can get by off of. The hard thing is, if you grew up with nothing, is allowing yourself to spend and enjoy the money that you've worked for.
Simple principle of trying to save as much money as you can and live off of little as possible really stuck with me, and it's one of the main factors that I think many other Chinese people adopt as well. Now, this is a good rule if you're trying to build wealth, but please understand that this type of rule will create what's called a scarcity mindset about money. The third factor that the Chinese employ to save a lot of money is that they really focus on their needs versus their wants. So another wise lesson from them is that if you need something and you have to actually spend money on something you need, then go ahead and spend money, especially if it pertains to your health. So if you're debating between a flimsy desk chair or an ergonomic chair that might be able to make you more comfortable and stay healthier throughout the day, you might want to opt for that ergonomic chair. I would classify the ergonomic chair as a need within reason. Of course, you don't want to take this logic to the most extreme. For example, everyone needs clothes, but that doesn't mean you need to go buy Gucci clothes just because they are better because it's a need. So here, the idea is to be reasonable with your spending and make smart choices and save where you can.
The famous needs versus wants debate. Now, this gets really dicey for a lot of people because we don't know where to draw the line. And I see people drawing that line way too far back and they're not spending enough money. So we need to prioritize our health. But what does that look like? Does that look like we have a sauna in our backyard, we install that pool so we can get our laps in every day? Or does it mean that we buy fresh fruit every once in a while and we're not just buying white bread and making peanut butter and jelly sandwiches? There's just so many variations of what a need is and what that means for our particular body and family. I think in general, if you know you are an overspender, you're probably drawing the needs line too generously. Yes, you do need a purse, but you probably don't need 20 $500 purses. What helps you draw that line about, I actually need this, or this is just a want?
Comes to wants, you can still buy something that you want, but make sure that you're going to get really good value out of that. So what do I mean by that? Let's say you buy a $350 fancy wallet. Like, let's say you just really wanted this. Well, you want to make sure that you can use that wallet for a very long time so that it amortizes the cost of your use. Could you use that wallet for 5 years? Then that means you would take that $350 and spread it out over 5 years of usage. That comes out to less than 20 cents a day. Spending money is inevitable. Everybody will have to spend money at some point, but the lesson here is to be reasonable and frugal with most of your decisions.
Another way to balance this needs wants debate is to have a certain amount of money set aside to spend on whatever that you would please. So for us, my husband and I each get a set amount of blow money each month. And if we decide to not spend it one month, then we would have more money and we could spend it on that $300 wallet if we wanted to. And nothing would stop us from doing that. And then we wouldn't actually have to make the decision whether or not that $300 wallet was 100% worth it, because we had fun money and we had enough of it to afford that purchase. We just go for it. And what I love about our system is that it just removes that guilt that comes from having to decide whether or not you deserve that expensive dress. I don't have to think about whether or not I deserve the dress, or I already have too many dresses, or how many dresses does one woman need. I say, I have enough money, I'm just gonna buy it.
The last factor here is that if you're trying to save money very quickly, the Chinese would advise you to stay at home and eat at home.
No, we have food at home. Food at home.
I think this one is pretty universal to most cultures. We know that by eating out, we're spending a lot more money on food than we need to. And in my household, I remember growing up and we would maybe go out to eat once every other week. Usually having people over to have a group dinner was more of a commonplace. And so that was our way of socializing as a family growing up. And the eating out was just mostly saved for special occasions.
This is how I like to eat out too. It's a very occasional thing. It's a special occasion thing. And I know that it's going to be overpriced, and I just enjoy the experience because that's what it's about. It's not about better nutrition, because better nutrition probably happens at home. It's not about saving money, because we all know it would be cheaper to eat at home. It's about having a great, fun experience. If you need a little help getting kickstarted with your budgeting, definitely check out the description. I have a couple resources there for you. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe so that you don't miss what's coming next. Looking forward to seeing you in the next one. Bye for now.